think this is so important.
Sorry. Let's do this.
Get it together.
Here we go. Rock the boat. Rock. Oh, wait, no. This is a Christian channel.
Work the middle. Listen, they might be wanting to play some tunes.
Shook it for me.
No, we're not going to do that.
No.
Good morning. Welcome to Lyte Talks. My name is Nikema Lyte, licensed clinical social worker, and I have a special guest today.
Who?
I don't know.
Who is it?
It's my husband, Isaiah Lyte from Be the Light VXVI.
Yep.
And we're here to let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Well, we're not going to talk about like our... Okay, never mind. Anyway, I hope you have been tuning into this series on navigating sex. It has been hot, steamy, informational, insightful, and life-changing for so many.
Yeah.
So if you have not watched the previous video on my personal testimony, as well as God's view on sex, make sure you go check that out over there, or over down there. I'm not sure where it's going to be.
Somewhere around
there. Make sure you go check those links out. But also, I think today's conversation is very important.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. It's important, y'all.
We're going to be talking about sex in marriage. And I just thought that it would be super important and dope to have my awesome husband join me about navigating this aspect of relationship and intimacy in marriage. I think this is so important because of what God's revealed to me in the plot of the enemy.
Yeah.
Right? Like with sex and sexual identity, what I've realized is that the enemy would love for all of us that are walking in singleness to be having sex. And then once we're in marriage, his plot, the enemy's plot, is to make sure nobody's having sex.
Yeah. That's the truth, y'all.
I don't know if you knew that, but the game has just changed, right? So for those of us that think that marriage is going to solve our desire problem or our lust problem, or, cool, you're in marriage now, but the problem or the game has changed and the plot has changed of the enemy. So I want us to be equipped. I want us to be walking out the purpose of God and being one and in a unit within our sexual relationships in marriage.
Yeah, and not be caught off guard. Like for those that are single, preparing to go into marriage.
Exactly.
And those that are in marriage that are struggling in this area, You're not alone. This happens to a lot of couples. So we're gonna be talking about that today, and I'm super excited.
Let's get right into it. Society's influence on sex is, I don't know, what's a big word?
Profound,
okay? From the thesaurus himself. And what I've realized is that there's so much advice, there's so many experts, yet this seems to still be a problem, right? So let's consider this. God created sex. So I'm going to go to the creator to be able to influence and give insight about my sexual relationship and my relationship in marriage, because he's the one that created it, not Trey Songz. Okay?
Really?
Yeah. That's what I used to think.
His song is convincing though.
I know, but he didn't create sex.
He didn't. Even before we realize it, sex is being taught to us as we go through life, and we're influenced by pornography, anime, the songs that we sing, the Trey Songz song that we just talked about. Yeah. All of those things impact the way that we view sex.
Yeah. Rom-coms, steamy books that we be reading.
Books, the Zanes. Yeah, we know about those. So all of these things influence us in the way that we view sex. And then we bring that into marriage, and that just messes everything up.
It does. And it's informed also by like our own past experiences, our upbringing, whether we grew up in the Christian faith or whether we didn't, because I've seen people struggle even with like walks of purity, right? And desiring to be a virgin until marriage, and then coming into marriage as sex is bad in their brain, or sex needs to be done in the dark because it's a secret, and all of these different things just based on like the influences over their experiences about sex.
Right. So a lot of us coming from the Christian faith have been taught that sex is bad.
Mm-hmm.
The advice, as you probably heard before, was,
what is it?
When you're single, don't have sex.
Don't even say the word.
Don't even say the word. When you hear the word, cringe and clinch. I don't know. But
yeah,
don't have sex. And then you start courting, dating, preparing for marriage, and then the advice is, go have sex. And where's the in between?
We're like, wait, what is that?
like, yeah, like, okay, do I flip a switch and it just happens? Let nature take its course. And that's hard.
Yes, we've counseled people that could have sex but couldn't even say the word, right? Like, so it's deeply ingrained that somehow sex is not okay. It's somehow communicated to us that sex is not something we should be having conversation about if we're not married. But that has so many different consequences. So let's talk about some parameters where the conversation is appropriate, the conversation is healthy, and it can help us walk into marriage in a healthy way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a shameless plug to one of my first videos, Navigating Expectations in Relationships.
Oh, that's a good video.
When we consider walking into relationship and marriage and sex, expectations are in the room. Okay? Yeah. They're there. So something that's really important about expectations is what? I'll ask you.
It needs to be communicated.
Come on! He's been watching my video! You hear that? Little God?
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to be communicated. So if you go on this wonderful Mexican resort for a honeymoon and you have not communicated your expectations, there can be a lot of disappointment and heartache that like start the marriage in a place of tension.
Absolutely. Like the expectations that we come into marriage with, say on our honeymoon, we think it's going to be this hot and steamy, we're talking about sex, so sex on the beach or something, like not the drink.
Right, like the sparks flying, like.
Right, and then we come into the honeymoon, and it's just falls flat, for lack of a better term. And someone's shocked, someone's disappointed, and then both parties become frustrated.
Right. And I think that what that's being kind of built up to or built up because of is the expectations can be built because of what we've seen, what we've desired, right? Like say we were talking about if we've been watching pornography and the depictions or the illustrations of sex is so much different from the reality, where people are swinging from chandeliers and all kinds of different things, where the love of an intimacy in a marriage, I don't think anybody's swinging.
Now that's something that you do, more power to you, but for the majority,
roll eyes. So pointing back to expectations needing to be communicated, right? Whether it be expectations on frequency, whether it be expectations on the differences in sex drives, in times of days, like communicate. What are those expectations? Because unmet expectations result in disappointment and frustration. Mm-hmm. And I tag you.
And a great resource that helped us in preparing for marriage was this devotional workbook. Called, and the title is Before I Say I Do.
Mm-hmm.
And that really broke down different areas that will come up in marriage, and sex was one of them. And I was the prude Peter when that
that's what I call it.
when that area came up for us to talk about, because it wasn't openly spoken about as I grew up. And so I just assumed that it was this one thing that just happened on my terms whenever. But that's not the case. So we literally had to sit down and talk about frequency and if it didn't match, then come to a compromise of like what that would look like.
And we talked about like even our expectations. Let me make sure this thing is on. I don't know if you've subscribed yet, but I'm just going to encourage you to do so, because content like this is what's allowing us to grow in relational intelligence. So make sure you do that. But communicating around your sexual relationship in marriage is vital, okay? It's essential, okay? You want to pop in sex life, you got to talk about sex.
You got to talk about it.
The things you have to talk about are the things you like, the things that you don't like.
The things that cause triggers.
Right, like the things that you consider you desire to do. Even talking about temptations and desires that have been outside of the marriage or even in the marriage. Talking about struggles. I think another important aspect that's like a part of communication is prayer. And making sure that it's not absent to pray about your sex life, right? Like it's an aspect of your marriage, an important aspect. And if there's struggles or if there's not struggles, like being able to cover your partner, to cover yourself, to cover the marriage, to not be infiltrated by the plot of the enemy, which is to cause tension and rifts and conflicts, to make sure that there's no coming together.
Praying for your spouse, all of those go a long way. And not leaving anything covered, right? Talking about temptations inside and outside the marriage, as you mentioned, is when something is hidden, then it festers. But when light is shone upon it, then it has no power.
Correct. I mean, I feel like we're saying that pretty casually, but let's lean into the fact that maybe in your marriage you might not feel as trusting or as vulnerable to open up in that way. And it goes back to communication, right? Like the fact that I can open up and say that this is the thought I've been having, or I've been having dreams about this, is because I know that this is a safe space, and vice versa. So there's not going to be judgment, or there's not going to be harshness around it. There's going to be support and coming together. So I think that there can be a lot of security. Like there needs to be security in each person in that relationship to be able to have those honest dialogues. So the person that might have those struggles feels freely to come to talk about, to share, and to disclose.
So what about if you don't feel like you have that relationship to communicate freely, right? Talking about sex is a struggle. What does someone do then?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that I've seen super helpful to create dialogue is like, say, guided question books, right? Like, say if it's like, well, I don't know what to talk about, or this is really awkward, like
You're so cute.
One book that I think my mom got it for us. It was a book that just has like 500 questions. Some of them are like, what do you think about kids? And some questions might be geared towards something in regards to sexual intimacy. But I feel like creating that atmosphere to have those questions answered by both people give the opening up in the safe space. But also, I'm gonna say prayer, right? Like if you're not feeling safe in that space, like going to the Father that has the heart of your spouse in his hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And also counseling goes a long way as well. So if you feel like you don't have the book with questions, or you don't feel comfortable, inviting a trusted third party to help guide you through. That person, that licensed professional, is trained to help you think through, talk through, and work through any difficult patches.
I didn't tell him to say that, guys. He knows. Therapy is important.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so like let's segue to the spice.
Wow. Spice.
Spice section.
Spicy.
So you often say that your dad tells you what? I think we need to tell the people this. Tell the people.
Keep the fire burning. And the cost low. Now, it doesn't mean be cheap.
Right.
But,
what does that mean then?
It means like be conscientious. Don't add another layer of stress to your life of going over the top of like trying to make this big experience happen and you go into debt. Like, don't do that.
That's good.
Don't do that.
What about the fire burning part?
Keep the fire burning means keep things fresh, not boring.
Okay.
Doing different things at different times.
Right. So oftentimes we use like this language or vernacular like keep it spicy or keep it fresh. And sometimes people don't practically know what to do or how to do that.
Right.
Well, we're here to help you. The ingredients for spice, I think going back to like if there's communication, but what type, right? So there might be flirting, there might be like I would call it like non-sexual physical touch, right? So there might be like being able to connect with the other person.
So you can talk in text about sex. You can text your spouse saying, I miss you. I can't wait to see you when I get home. Here's a picture of me at work. Here's a picture of me at home. Those go a long way.
Also, I found like it's important to be able to switch things up in terms of like when the sexual intimacy is taking place. I find that, I don't know, maybe as you get older or whatever, like when it's time for bed, it's time for bed. So if you're if that's the only time that you've connected to coming together with your spouse, you can be setting yourself up if it's been a long week and being able to make excuses or things like that. So night, afternoon, morning, lunch break, switching it up, but also like different locations, different things like that have the ability to create spice. You own the whole house, right?
You own the whole car, right?
Oh my God. And being able to keep that in mind in terms of if there's freshness, if there's that spice or that flavor or desire that's still being had in the sexual relationship.
Absolutely. So in addition to location and different times, trying something new in the marriage bed works, like different positions of keeping the spice and keeping the flames alive.
Yeah, this is like when we think about, I remember I said in a previous video about like reading the Bible, right? Stay with me. I'm still talking about sex. And I said, this book you'll be reading for the rest of your life. That might sound really weird or really crazy, but it's the truth, right? This partner that you have, we have committed in marriage to be having sex with this partner for the rest of our lives. So beginning to understand the desire and the need to continue the exploration, to continue the pursuit, to continue the outfit wearing and tidying and getting haircuts and looking good and lashes and all that stuff, whatever is your choice. All right, but making sure that it's guided by his spirit, like his presence is in this marriage, his presence is in your marriage. So things that might not be appropriate or leading us to a place back to the world, he's gonna nudge you, and we need to listen to that nudge, right? Like, and being able to communicate, like, I tried that was uncomfortable, I don't think that we should do that. But I just love the opportunity for like transparency and being able to understand the importance of going there with your spouse. That's the person that should know you the best other than God.
Most intimately.
So keep it spicy. I think that this conversation is super, super important to be able, the purpose is to be able to have a healthy sex life in your marriage. And if you're watching this and you're single or you're desiring to become married, I think it's still important because like we were saying, the importance of being able to have the understanding of God's desire for us in a healthy marriage is to have a healthy sex life.
And so we've talked about the importance of sex building intimacy in the marriage. Sex is sustenance to a marriage.
Yeah.
Think of prayer. prayer builds your intimacy with God. In the same way, sex with your spouse builds intimacy with them. And so it is imperative that spouses have sex because sex is good.
Right. It is. And I think like being able to just say that in the Christian community is huge. There is no time frame on what age we should stop having sex in marriage, right? I might speak to, or we might count to couples that are older in age, and it's like, oh, we're too old for that. Well, the Bible, the Bible talked about Abram and Sarai still getting it on, okay?
Getting it on.
So remember,
God created sex. God creates good things. Sex is good.
We love you so much. We're going to be linking resources down below. I'm going to share Isaiah's testimony and mine as well. Make sure that you check that out. Share this content with someone that you know, and make sure that you go forth and shine your light. Bye.
Bye.